Hey, what's going on, everyone? This is Eric Stewart from the Bad Rhino Local Podcast, and today I'm joined with Kevin Boylan, who is the founder of Scapes. How you doing, Kevin?
Good, Eric. How you doing, brother? Thanks for having us on today.
It's good to have you on, man. And I'm excited to dive into this. We first met at a Westchester Chamber event, just talking a little bit about what you guys do. But Kevin, let's kick it off. Tell our listeners more about Scapes and what you guys do over there.
Yeah, for sure. So Scapes, we are a remote-based landscape design service provider in a nutshell. So kind of dabbling in that e-commerce realm, kind of something that's newer to the market. Really, the COVID times, 2020, really drove the capability for kind of the world to be comfortable working remotely or operating with service providers even remotely. So we took that and said, hey, we can do landscape designs remotely. So there's a handful of us that are doing it kind of throughout the country on any kind of reasonable scale. We've pivoted, shifted, morphed over the last few years since we started, and now we predominantly work with landscape contractors as their outsourced kind of managed service provider, so to speak, as for landscape designs. So again, kind of covering the eastern half of the country with them, still doing some direct-to-consumer stuff with homeowners. And that's kind of all throughout the country. So it was pretty cool. Been a really fun journey, man. We're contractors by trade, if you can't tell by how I talk probably, but we're landscapers at heart. It's what we started out doing. So when I say us, there's myself, counterpart Josh Dunay. Him and I run the business kind of day to day. He's on the operations side. I'm more on the sales account management, working with customers, so from that regard, we divide and conquer. But again, both landscapers, we went from literally overnight in 2019, end of 2019 into 2020, from working in like a 20-mile radius to a national level. And I guess technically even international now with Canada, doing some work in Canada. So again, man, just a really fun journey. Learned a lot along the way here. So we're covering a pretty big geographic footprint with where our customers are based. We also have our teams with internally who we're using to help us grow and build and execute our deliverables to our customers is also internationally based, and that's been another really interesting endeavor, I guess, with its own set of challenges. And but again, fast forward to where we are today on this call and have a sustainable business, man. That's about all we can ask for, right? Pay some bills and get on and talk about it on some podcasts with dudes like you. So it's all good, man.
Definitely. And dude, Kevin, let's throw it all the way back. It's something I like doing kind of on this podcast and talking about the journey of like how you got to where you are today. And I was just looking at what you have going on. Back in 2016, you started at a lawn care company, I think doing like an account executive type of role there. But what really from that point on made you push to kind of start your own thing?
Yeah, so that was good homework. That was actually post-college. So 2016, I just graduated from Penn State, actually. That's where Josh and I met. And that's really where our relationships are, friends at first, right? But even before that, I think I've always been in the landscaping industry. Sometimes you tell people it's about all we're good for. Like, ask me, something about plumbing. I don't know anything, marketing like you guys do. I don't know anything. We know what we're good at, and that's landscaping. But how we got into that for Josh and I, it's the same story, man. Like we were mowing lawns, neighborhood type stuff and just looking to make a buck, for some fun money growing up. I tell people, like, it's the honest goodness truth, man. I started mowing lawns. I just wanted a go-kart. I was 12 years old and thought that a go-kart was the coolest thing in the world. And my dad had just gotten a new shed and there's space, and I wanted to put the go-kart in the shed, man. That was my dream. And, fast forward, 15, 16 years later, and I still don't have that go-kart. So I'm still in landscaping because of that. But no, it's mowing lawns, went the degree route, man, and got a degree in landscape contracting was the name of the program. So bachelor's degree, and really cool program at Penn State. A little plug for them, man. They've been collectively, the industry has kind of been hurting for enrollment. So really great program for anybody out there that might be listening or has a kid maybe that's growing up. And it's a really cool program. It's not landscape architecture, so it's a little bit different path You get a little bit more horticulture, plant-based knowledge. You get a lot more business-oriented classes, in addition to the design studio type of work with a lot of what is now computer. Even since 2016, it's a lot more computer stuff than what we were dealing with back then. But so yeah, great program, man. That's where Josh and I met. Spent a couple years, like you saw, with a company called Landcare. Great experience with them. They are a kind of a national conglomerate, 4,000 or 5,000 employees, 50, 60 locations throughout the country, and got lucky enough to land a pretty sweet gig in account management and business development with them. So I had, through college, I had actually operated my own landscape design build company and maintenance. So I went from residential maintenance and design build to commercial landscape maintenance with Landcare. And that had kind of like completed my little journey in the industry, at least with exposure to the big elements of the landscape trades, being residential design build, residential maintenance, and commercial maintenance. So again, all those experiences kind of converged, and more recently, 3 years ago, saw an opportunity, really solving a lot of the pains that we had experienced in the industry, a lot of what my friends had experienced, a lot of landscape business owners, and started with the design business, which had kind of already been in play to begin with. I was already designing for a handful of contractors local to the Westchester market, just as they saw what I was doing with some design work. So we had a little bit of a foundation there that we were able to play with some stuff, and then again went fully live. So to answer, it's a long way to answer your question, but the answer to that is always kind of like had that. I don't necessarily always love the word entrepreneur. I think that gets thrown around loosely a lot, but always had that drive to solve problems and turn them into businesses, and pretty passionate about not only the business like function that we do with the services and the deliverables, but also like building a brand and taking that and creating an actual business out of it. I get a lot of enjoyment out of that. And again, we've spun that now into a few different other business ventures that we have, like in development and beta testing right now that we're getting ready to launch for the end of the year here. So it just keeps being like an evolving transition that keeps morphing, and that's every time we pivot like that or launch another entire new initiative, it's just solving another problem that we hear about day in and day out. So that's the crux of it. That's the root, is solving problems, man, making people's lives a little bit easier. This business has been our way of kind of giving back to the landscape industry. This business is built on volume. I just got off the phone with a customer earlier today, actually asking about, we get asked all the time from our customers being contractors about the state of the market, the health of the industry, some macroeconomic type questions, what we're seeing. And he was asking a little bit more specifically about our business and trying to understand that, which is interesting. We don't get like customers asking about our business a whole lot on that level, right. Which can kind of, at first, sometimes it feels a little bit awkward. And then, but we always operate like open book, man. Anything you want to know? Well, we don't have anything to hide. And I was kind of explaining to him that like we built Scapes was built for volume. So we need a lot of volume. And we're kind of at that point where we're fortunate enough, again, sitting here closing out Q3 to be at where we project it for the year. I know, particularly in the service-based industries, it's slowed down a little bit compared to the last few years. It's we tell people it's slower. It's not slow compared to traditional market conditions pre-COVID. Slower than the last few years, but not slow pre-COVID. So,
gotcha.
But yeah, man, it's been cool, just solving problems and making businesses out of it with different strategies, and but it all kind of started and continues to evolve around Scapes, the landscape design business. So that's what's given us the exposure, I guess, and to our customer base, to allow us to be in a position to solve even more problems now than what we had set out to do with just landscape design. So.
Yeah, solving problems. And then the cool story about the go-kart too. And it's funny, when I talk to people that own business, there's always something weird that motivates them. It could be they just had a child and they want to start their own business to just be financially stable, right? For you, it's funny to hear it was a go-kart that started that whole push for you. but to each their own, man.
Yeah, I haven't gotten the go-kart, but I have gotten a race car. So I do some racing. That's my hobby. And that's a great point, man, about like what drives people. I briefly hit on that I don't necessarily love the term or word entrepreneur. I feel like a lot of people like slap that title on themselves a lot of times. And it's just thrown around real loosely now. But for me, it's not necessarily like I enjoy like building businesses and solving problems for customers and providing a high level of service and quality deliverables, all that stuff. Day in and day out, like my work day, that's what I'm passionate about. But when I go to sleep at night, that's not what drives me. That's not what motivates me to continue to do that stuff, right? It's not the money either, because again, like that's the conversation I had with one of our customers earlier. It's like, we're built on volume, man. Like while we're building this business, like every dollar that we can that doesn't directly pay one of our own bills that we need to live on pretty much goes right back into the businesses that we're building and reinvest in. To keep growing. But that growth is fueled by, for me, things like my hobbies, which are, racing is one of them, which does take quite a bit of money, and we have to get creative at times for how we do that. But yeah, that's cool, man. That's something you don't hear a lot of people talking about, right? Like it's not super sexy, and it's not the stuff that necessarily sells more at work, right? Like somebody's not going to listen to this right now and call us up because, they want to help me in support my racing, right? Like that, they don't go together, and it doesn't mean anything to our customers. But what it does mean is that's what drives me to operate a successful business. And that is in turn what, lends itself to having the type of processes and procedures that we have in place, and relentless, unrelenting quality and efficiency, and all those things that our customers do see, and the things that do drive their value from us. So
you're right,
but yeah,
and it's real too, right? It's a real thing, right? I mean, business owners, like they understand it, like the goals that people have, and we're going to talk about one of the companies that you're starting to develop in the motorsports industry in a little bit later on. But let's talk about Scapes a little bit more. And one question I have specifically is, who was it really made for? And I know you hit on this a little bit. Is it the residential side, commercial side, or is it like kind of both? Or how does that whole process work?
Yeah, the short answer is both. The overwhelming majority of our revenue and design volume comes from contractors. That's our core. It's the recurring revenue, right? Like, so from a business sustainability standpoint, I would be careful about saying prefer that, but that's what we focused on more the last couple of years. So in 2020, we started when we went full live to the market with it. We went direct to consumer. So we spent a lot of time and money trying to target homeowners directly. What we realized is the customer acquisition cost was too high for us to scale on, at least at the rate we kind of knew we wanted to scale to, really to keep our price points in check, right? Like, so every business has, overhead expenses. So to offset those overheads and get to the point, we needed to hit a plateau very quickly, and we just weren't reaching that plateau quick enough with marketing to homeowners. So we were able to pivot, thankfully, and turn right back to landscape contractors, who we already knew, we were already comfortable with. That was always it was kind of like a card in our back pocket that we knew we might have to play pretty quickly, and we ended up having to play it. So, but that's, again, through the end of this year, the focus will continue to be on contractors, but it's not to say that the homeowner business has slowed down. It actually really hasn't. It's held pretty steady. It's just as a volume in relation to the overall scale of our company, it's shrunk. But yeah, so both, but again, contract landscapers make up the majority of our day-to-day. So
Gotcha. Yeah, just looking at your price point and like knowing how digital marketing works and all that, I could only imagine like your acquisition cost is probably more than like the ad spend that you're actually running. So I think it's a good pivot to just focus on like the landscapers and go that route for sure.
Yeah, and then you hear people talk about bootstrapping, and like we were able to just dumb it down to like reaching out to people we already know. And
give people pick up the phone and call them, right?
Yeah, business got real simple real quick.
Business owners and marketing professionals in the Philly area, Bad Rhino takes the overwhelm out of digital marketing. With tailored digital marketing services, from social media management to SEO and PPC advertising, our expert team navigates the complexities of the digital ad space for your business. Let Bad Rhino lead you to success. Visit badrhinoinc.com and let's take your business to new heights. Bad Rhino. We do digital marketing, so you don't have to.
Well, let's talk about your 3 packages. You got the photorealistic, you got the lifelike rendering, and then you got the reserve collection. So can you hit on each of those 3 real quick?
Yeah, so our lowest cost entry design package is the photorealistic, and that's been around for a while in the industry, but the industry has actually kind of moved away from it. You won't actually see that in the marketplace a whole lot anymore. We find a tremendous amount of value in it because it allows not only us, but allows our customers to have a really attainable design deliverable prepared at a very, very reasonable price point. So those start at $149, but they are essentially just like a picture. So you would take a picture of the front of your house, send it to me, and we start tweaking it and marking it up with plants. And it's essentially Photoshop at its core, but like with a plant spin on it. So really efficient manner for us to design in, and a really good fit for what we would call like small scale landscape projects. So little landscape renovations. If you have a new home, you have a completely blank slate, that's ideal. We can start overlaying plants in there, get you where you want to go, again, at a very, very low cost route. So that's the photorealistic. Good fits for, again, small scale landscape renovations, new installs on new homes or whatever the case may be. Landscape specific though. The lifelike renderings, that's by far our most popular design option, and kind of has been, just with what's going on in the market the last few years, people a lot more comfortable investing in larger scale outdoor living spaces. That's where the 3D lifelike rendering shine. So that's what they are, true 3D custom modeling. We use a few different programs. Most of what we use is landscape industry specific. Helps us, again, from an efficiency standpoint. Efficiency from our business model. When our customers hear us start saying efficiency, that just means cost savings. Like the faster we can do something, right, the lower the cost we can do. So again, there's some really good programs out there that we use in the 3D world to generate some really high quality 3D visualizations that are, we call them concept renderings. There's some verbiage we lean on where it's, if you're looking for like where each nail is going to go in like a porch, it's not going to show you that, right? But concept renderings, man, is really what we're after there to bring something to life in a 3D realm that otherwise wouldn't exist from more traditional design methods. So that's the 3D stuff, and then the traditional design methods that I just referenced. That's what we call bird's eye view. So that's just a slightly more modern spin on what the traditional blueprint looks like, right? So we're able to again, a little bit more efficiently, because we can do them on the computer now, add a little bit more detail to what is, what would have, again, historically been drafted by hand, right, on paper. So those are kind of the three methods: photorealistic, quick picture. We make some edits on the picture. That's the photorealistic, the lowest price point. The 3D is our lifelike renderings, most popular by far, better fit for outdoor living projects. Pretty much anytime hardscaping, patios, walkways get involved, or any kind of structures with kitchens, pools, decks, whatever it might be. That's where they really shine. The bird's eye view, that's a good fit for somebody that maybe wants to just dip their toes in a project, start the process. Maybe doesn't want to fully invest in the 3D rendering for whatever reason. Maybe they don't want to have it built yet, or maybe they don't need it for the size and scope of their project. They don't need that visualization. That's where the bird's eye view. They're more or less, the entire industry is kind of moving away from that. We still make it available. Not very popular option, but it does get purchased from time to time. So we make it available still. So
might as well. And then I saw you guys use some like AI of like, I have an Oculus at home. I play around on there too. How much of like the new tech are you guys implementing in your business? Because I'm sure it's like a ton of it.
Sorry, I overlooked one of them, the reserve collection that you asked about. So that's the virtual reality stuff. We, between the virtual reality and AI, dabble a lot within it. So we actually started working with an AI consultant. I'm going to go 2 different directions here. We actually started working with an AI consultant at the end of last calendar year into this year, just trying to make sure that we're doing everything we can to stay up to date, because we know that it could potentially be a switch that is flipped, and we don't want the lights to go off on our business because we weren't paying attention to AI, and oh my goodness, all landscape designers are replaced now because this technology is able to do it. for real high level, we do feel like it will get there. The capability to do that is here now. Like the AI conversation isn't something that is like future tense, man. It's not something that's coming. It's here. And it's just a matter of training the computers to do it. So that's as far as we've gotten, and really where we're kind of sitting and holding. We're in a waiting pattern right now on. We don't have the resources, particularly financial resources mainly, to throw at an endeavor like that without seeing kind of how the market's going to bear it. That's the only unknown right now. Is the technology's there for us, and again, not super popular to talk about, but in the landscape design world, we could be replaced tomorrow, and that's just the reality of it. Like again, the technology is there today, so we're dabbling with it. Nobody has invested heavily in it that we know of yet. It will likely be driven by the big players in the overall AI game, the Googles and the Metas of the world, seeing who, if they buy up any companies, will probably be the first trigger. So there's some stuff on our radar. If they buy up like one of the landscape design companies that currently exist to develop 3D imagery, then we'll really be put on notice. The entire industry will on, hey, this is now become a reality, that this is likely to happen. So yeah, there's some exciting things coming, because I think from a design perspective, again, I briefly made the plug about Penn State. So why businesses, an underlying opportunity that allowed us to scale Scapes as a remote-based landscape design provider is the fact that enrollment in professional degrees like Penn State's landscape contracting program have been declining for a number of years. And that decline, nobody's really been able to turn that around. It's started to plateau a little bit, but plateau meaning like, I think Josh and I, if I remember correctly, I think we graduated with 12 kids in our class. And that's one of the bigger name universities with that program in the country. So that was 2016. So since then, it's continued to decline. Again, maybe plateaued a little bit, but that directly played a hand in the demand for, or opportunities for businesses like ours, right? Because now we have an alternate means to solve the problem for businesses, which one of the problems is sourcing designers because of the lack of enrollment, right? So you don't have these enough people to fill the jobs that are out there in the market. So again, that was a good thing for our business, bad thing for the industry, but good thing for us because we were able to solve that problem. What that means though is that as that continues, and if more people don't pursue professions like landscape design, we won't really have a solution anymore besides pursuing investments in technology like AI. So that's just the reality of it, man. Like if people don't get interested in it, then it forces the hand of AI. And that's where a lot of the conversation is going right now within the industry, the limited conversation that is happening. I'm glad you brought it up. I appreciate that, because I wish we were able to establish more dialogue around what is actually going on. And it's easy to cry foul of stop AI, but to be able to stop it, we need to look at what are some of the underlying issues that are even allowing AI to have a realistic opportunity to build a home within an industry like landscape design, and that the root of that is really tied to lack of interest really in pursuing some of these professions. So. Mm-hmm. And yeah. I don't have any solution for that other than just bringing attention to it right now on a podcast like this as much as we can, and telling people that, hey, it is a legitimate profession and it is something worth considering. But at the end of the day, if enough people don't consider it in that manner or take the step to pursue it as a career, then AI will take over. It'll be a really interesting journey to see how well it's received within the industry, how much of that is driven by consumer demand, right? Because our customer, whether we work directly with the homeowner, direct to consumer, or through our contractor network, it's all serving the same end user as the homeowner. Right. And how much of that are they wanting, right? Because the real from an end user standpoint, the real value from AI, it seems like it's something that you would think that maybe would be one of the things to be impacted slower by automation, right? Like the design process is kind of highly subjective, right? The creativity element of it, like how can a computer do that? But the thing that we've learned is that yes, it is extremely difficult and will always be to get a computer to understand what you're envisioning. But the computer can generate hundreds or thousands of scenarios and design layouts within a matter of seconds. What would take us, it's not even realistic for a human to compete with that. And if you were able to pull elements that you like from each one and tell the computer that I like this, I like this, I like this, and then from this one, and then you're able to merge it all into one model, that's where it seems like it's most likely to go. And again, it'll really just be who throws a ton of money at it first, and how much do consumers like it, and that'll drive where guys like us have to pivot and respond and figure out how to integrate that. So, but super interesting.
I think at the end of the day, right, because there's a lot of AI that goes into like digital marketing too as well, and you kind of see the trends as we kind of move forward through like ChatGPT and then other video editing software too that we have out there. But I think at the end of the day, when it comes to reaching out to someone that has a specific pain point or has a specific problem, they're always going to want that human interaction part of it, whether it's to get help with how they want something to look, or whether it's to get help and just talk to someone of how to use AI more effectively, right? So I don't think like the human to human interaction will ever be like truly gone, but it makes our jobs a lot easier in the fact that we can give a client or potential client a lot of options really quickly.
Yeah. That's the truth, man. It is like, I'm glad to hear that perspective. That's where we're at right now, right? It's like adapt or die almost. You can't ignore it. Like you can't stop short of like that perspective you have is, I would agree with all day, is that the business is primarily rooted in a human element, Yeah. And we spend a lot of time with our contractor customers because, let's face it, man, right? Like service provider, business owners, particularly contractors, aren't the best personalities to work with at times, particularly in a sales relationship. And we cringe a lot when we hear some of the ways our customers talk to some of their customers. And there's what it is. Like we can only control so much of that. But we do spend a lot of time talking about, particularly in design process, that end users, consumers, they just want to be heard, right? And that is the element that I think will allow us to continue to outlast AI almost, right? Like that's what we're talking about. Like people want to be heard and listened to. And that is where the computer will always fall short. Mm-hmm. It becomes that, you mentioned robot, like it becomes that very, very, we've all had those interactions with Siri, right? Like is a great example, or whatever, the Alexa, right, in your house is probably like look over my shoulder, probably listening to me right now and gonna hear me saying something bad about her, but but they don't listen great, right? Like they listen to like very transactional, like order me this or tell me the weather. But anything that takes a little bit like higher level thinking, like what you guys, like somebody trying to explain their business to a marketing agency, like, it's totally out of my, but I can see the parallel there, right? Like somebody trying to explain their backyard oasis to us is the equivalent of a business owner trying to explain to you what the value of their business and how they want to approach the market. And it's just conversations, right? That AI is, can it handle it? Probably. Will people be heard? No, right? Because at the end of the day, it's still a computer listening. And it's not that human to human interaction that, that's it. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah. That's as far as I'll probably take that, because that's like a whole. We could spend hours talking about that, hypothesizing, and there's plenty of people out there. But that's all it is, man. If anybody claims to have an answer or projection, we listen to a lot of podcasts and stuff, man. There's people saying all sorts of crazy things around AI out there, man. But all we know is how it fits into our business, our industry, and we see both sides of the fence on that one. Where no, it's not like Armageddon just yet, where AI is going to replace us and what we do. But yes, we need to acknowledge it, and we cannot ignore it, because that technology legitimately is a legitimate solution, and somebody will legitimize it even further with some serious investments in it once the computers start getting taught how to do some of these things. And we just need to be on alert about it right now. So. Yeah,
it should be interesting how it plays out. But let's talk about your process too with Scapes, and like when someone reaches out to you and they have a specific need of a design, how long does it normally take for you guys to kind of turn that around?
So we aim for less than 2 weeks every time. We aim for a 1 week turnaround. Smaller projects might even be a little bit faster than 1 week. bigger projects, when you start getting in pools and some crazy outdoor living spaces, we physically, like literally might need enough hours in a day to deliver it in 2 weeks. So, but somewhere between that 1 week and 2 week turnaround time, we try and make it as painless as possible. We do a lot with photos. There's a lot of technology that we use behind the scenes. That's pretty cool. That we can get a lot of information, aerial. We used to say satellite imagery, but a lot of it's not satellites anymore. A lot of it's actually like planes flying around taking imagery. There's some drone imagery that we're able to tap into now. It's like not necessarily marketed towards our industry. So we have a role in our business where about 10 hours a week, we have an individual, all they do is technology integration is what we call the role, but it's basically just find new technology that's out there and how we can integrate it into our business. So again, there's a lot that's how we're able to operate remotely. It's kind of, if I showed you some stuff, man, it's kind of scary at a point what we can see, with every time like we get into situations where we find a conversation around, it's like, man, like if we can get this information, like imagine what the government has access to, But yeah, man, I can tell you the colors of the shutters on your house in 10 seconds, and it's amazingly accurate too. So like it's funny, but at the end of the day, like we need it to be accurate, and it is. So there's that technology. We have another third-party app that we use. It takes 8 pictures, proprietary. They just last year got done raising like 400-some million seed fund investment round backed by insurance companies predominantly. But we use it. We take 8 pictures around the house or provided 8 pictures around the house rather from either a contractor or end user, the homeowner. With those 8 pictures, we get every measurement you could possibly imagine off the house down to the quarter of an inch. So really cool. Really cool technology. And it starts to actually create the 3D model of the home. So it cuts out a lot of the legwork for us. That used to be the biggest hurdle, is we can see a lot of this stuff, but I can only usually get accurate off satellite imagery or aerial imagery down to the whole inch, sometimes more like 2 or 3 inches, depending on what software we're using, which is still really accurate for most of what we do. But to have that down to the quarter inch, and once we have the house in place, everything else becomes accurate to that. So there's a lot of technology that's out there, man, that we use behind the scenes to make this stuff happen and make it really easy for our customer, again, whether that's a contractor or a homeowner. At its core, 8 pictures, a virtual meeting, start getting the vision down. Most of the time within in a half-hour virtual meeting, 8 pictures, we can get just about every project where we want it to go collectively between, again, the end user, contractor, and ourselves, and produce the design deliverables. So it's become a very, very easy and painless process. So.
That's awesome. Well, this is the Bad Rhino Local Podcast. So I do have to ask you about marketing, what you guys are doing in your marketing right now. I know you kind of hit on it a little bit, just kind of boots on the ground, bootstraps, just calling people and kind of going out there. But how are you guys getting more business?
Yeah, so we're heavy. Probably the biggest channels are LinkedIn, so just reaching out to people because that's where business owners are most active. And then Facebook groups would be probably the second biggest. Flip a coin, actually, maybe recently on which one's bigger, but those are pretty big. We might need some help from you guys. Actually, our Facebook account got hacked for the business page, and that's been like a 4-month process now to try and get that back. So that was bringing in a fair amount of like when we talk about like homeowners, direct to consumer business, that was bringing in a fair amount. But yeah, outside of that, it's limited advertising and marketing initiatives right now. Some of that is also driven by like we've maintained the trajectory. We've hit kind of budget numbers where we want it to be to this point in the year. It's afforded us the ability to fast track some of these other business initiatives that we're working on, spinoffs, and that's just tied up some of our attention. But yeah, we'll be hitting you guys up for
sure, man,
for a little meeting.
No, it's a good place to be, though, in your business where, like, you can kind of sit back and just kind of let whatever you already have set up there kind of work its magic, especially if you're hitting your numbers.
Yeah, dude, I got to be honest with you. When we realized that, it, like, the anxiety started to creep in, like, right? Because you feel like, man, we're not working as much. Like, it doesn't feel like we're working as much. But, again, like, when the budget doesn't lie, and certainly the bank accounts don't lie, when there's enough money to, again, pay what we need to pay, and we're not having to work as much to do it. That was a super cool transition to go through this last year. Again, it's allowed us to. It's what has allowed us to not only fast track these initiatives, but find the opportunities to spin off some of these other businesses and solve some other problems like we talked about. So,
awesome. Let's talk about one of the businesses that you're starting up here, because I was doing some research on you, and I I saw it on your LinkedIn profile, MadMan Motorsports.
Yeah, man.
Talk to me about that, man.
So that was born out of pure frustration of watching. So you go to local racetracks, right? And like there are literally tens of thousands of them throughout the country. Super cool vibe for what it's worth. If anybody ever is looking for something to do on a Friday or Saturday night, like look up your local racetrack, man. There are a lot of them out there, and it's a really cool community, really good time, family friendly events. But in the racing community, you have like NASCAR, Formula One, IndyCar, right? And then there's a pretty big gap. There's not a whole lot in between that and your local short track scenes. And if you spend time around local short track racers, a lot of the communication and the rhetoric that you'll hear is frustration around there's no money in racing anymore, right? So like I had heard this for a lot of years, and I was always a race fan growing up, super passionate race fan. Like I would watch anything and everything that I could, on any given night of the week, I was watching some form of racing. And I constantly had heard this. So it kind of deterred me from, I just started racing a couple years ago. So I am an extremely late bloomer in the racing world. Like that, I am ancient to start racing at whatever it was, 20, 27, 28. That is ancient in the racing world. Most kids now are starting at 4, 5, 6 years old, getting in a go-kart. So I didn't have that opportunity. So I had to again wait until I felt like I had enough financial resources to do something in racing. And again, probably was deterred another year or two just because of like hearing that constantly that there's no money in racing, no money in motorsports. And but when you looked at it, like NASCAR, Formula One, IndyCar, they're not having any problems, right? Like those teams aren't shuttering. There's some dialogue there too, but for all intents and purposes, right? Like they're still operating. There's still a lot of money there. And then I looked at like the local racers and the more interaction around like the local racetrack scenes. It really just boiled down to like who, and it's not a shot at local racers. It's just a nature. That's just a human nature of like who they are and what their day to day looks like. They're spending so much time working on the cars and not enough time working on bringing in revenue to support their racing activities. And it is expensive hobby, man. If you don't have any kind of financial backing from sponsors. So, but you would hear these sound bites, and then when you start asking the questions, there's, you take a little bit deeper dive. The next comments that you're likely to hear are there's no sponsors anymore, or sponsors don't want to spend the money, or something along those lines, right? But if you ask those same people the question of like, how many sponsors did you reach out to? How many prospective sponsors did you actually contact? I would wager bet that the overwhelming majority of them would less than 10, and 9 of those 10 are probably like family and friends that own businesses or have a friend of a friend that owns a business, right? So that's really what we looked at with MadMan and said, all right, hang on, man, like there's got to be a better way to go about this. So we put a quick brand together for it, and we are still like navigating the waters of like, where is the best value add content? So it's content focused strategy to attracting sponsors, right? So we're not just like printing up some t-shirts and going to a potential sponsor and saying, hey, we'll put your sticker on the car, right? Because nobody cares about that anymore, man. Like there's just the fact of the matter is that's not where businesses are spending money. And that's what I know as a business owner who I don't even sponsor myself in racing because I know that's not my audience, Right. So, and traditionally like landscape companies and stuff are big players in local racetrack scenes. But again, we just looked at it through a little bit different lens and said, hey man, if we can focus more on content creation, engage people in a little bit different manner than trying to do it at the racetrack, then we probably can leverage that into allowing ourselves to be in a little bit better position in the racing community. And then over the last year, man, again, it's continued to morph. We're dabbling in some stuff with video content, and we're actually getting into apparel for next year, which has been a totally insane initiative, like trying to negotiate, like apparel contracts, right? Like, dude, come on, man. Like I'm used to buying shovels and rakes and maybe like a truck or a skid steer or something, but like apparel and like designing the apparel. So that's been a totally crazy world. We feel like that's the best approach we have right now to actually raise some money and gain a following. That's what it's all about is gaining the following. So we did the video. We started with that. That was fairly successful. We just did a pilot real quick, low cost, simple video, man. Collectively across the platforms got like 1 million views in the first month, which was like it greatly exceeded what we ever could have expected. But what we were not prepared for was to like leverage that into anything. So it was totally just a pilot. Like we were like, dude, 50,000 views. If we can get to 50,000, that's like proof of concept, and we'll continue to develop, more content-based strategy. But yeah, so we did that, had no plan in place, man, and have like completely sat on that now. But we have a couple plans for more videos for next year and the apparel. And we're getting into things like sponsoring some iRacing stuff. Again, big, in the virtual gaming world, there's a lot of crossover between that and real life racing. So we're just doing anything we can to build brand awareness, and the in and of itself, things like the apparel transactions will be able to support some of the racing initiatives, because now there's a lot more people involved too. Of course, like as you build relationships, it's like, oh man, like that dude is kicking my butt every week in the race car. And like, he's a really good teammate, right? So we have like a team, he's a really good teammate. And now I want to help that kid because that kid doesn't have any sponsorship money. So it's rapidly morphed into something that was more like a hobby. Like, hey, if I can go from racing 10 races a year to 20 races a year and get that paid for through, the MadMan Motorsports initiatives, that's where that started. And now it's kind of, through the nature of business, I guess, treating it more like a business and trying to help other people out and trying to think of ways we can get more creative and doing things like apparel and some more video series. And but yeah, man, totally just another one, just a wild ride. Never thought that like we'd be making like YouTube videos and content like that, or branding apparel and totally, going into like custom apparel and negotiating contracts again all throughout the world to try and make that stuff happen. And where the heck are we going to get cardboard boxes is like the next one we have, and just to like ship stuff. Yeah, it's just crazy, man. Like all that just to like go drive a race car for a couple hours on a weekend, a couple dozen times throughout the year. But yeah, super cool. And in all seriousness, we are trying to like with Spin That brand pivot a little bit more into, I realized like I'm not, I guess inherently not very selfish. So I realized pretty quickly that there are really good people in the local track racing community. And we have a shot here to help as many of them as we can. So that's really what we're focused on is, and that's another like interesting learning experience is trying to figure out who are we going to help. We want to help everybody, right? But we can't. So we have to figure out a way to pick a few people to bring along for the ride to start with at least, and try and get them some funding to keep their racing careers going. A lot of it is like a really weird transition too, man, going through my 20s now, and where I was 5 years ago, my perspective on life and business and where I'm at now has changed pretty rapidly. And now it's more like, hey, the realization has come that my time and my shot at like driving a race car professionally, at least at a high level, has probably passed. And if I want to make any kind of impact in the racing world, it's not going to be behind the steering wheel. It's more than likely to be supporting other younger drivers who are up and coming. And again, that's just the reality of the situation, man. At late 20s, opportunities going, man. You gotta be, 16 to 20 basically. And that's where we've made some really cool relationships and have some really good friends now that are in that age bracket that are just really wicked race car drivers that I would love if we could just be a small little support system for them to help give them that little nudge into getting a little bit more recognized. And but yeah, man, that's what that one's all about. That's what racing is anymore, man. You got to bring the money. So one way or another, it's got to come from your own pockets or it's got to come from somebody else's. So we're going to try and help them bring the money. So
love it. Well, hats off to you, Kevin, for doing something that you're passionate about too there on that side of it. And Kevin, I wanted to kind of shout out because we first originally met at the Westchester Chamber event back a couple months ago. And just wanted to give you the time to talk about what it's like networking in Westchester and kind of in the community around us.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that, man. Westchester Chamber of Commerce, again, for local business owners, if they're not involved and happen to be listening to this, it's a great organization. I don't like to throw around like low cost, but like for the cost, for what it costs out of our pocket to be a part of that organization, the value that's returned to us is phenomenal. Katie and her team just do a tremendous job with not only like big events that are coming throughout the year, but the monthly opportunities to get involved are huge. And we made that pretty clear when we joined the organization. Like, we were in the frame of mind that we don't want any like we didn't go in with the intent of getting business out, right? And I don't think we actually have gotten any business out, but that's not the value to us. For me, I live in Westchester, and I live in like a little bit of not a weird community, but there's just not a lot of neighbors around me. Like, I lived in town for a year, which was awesome, fantastic. Like, wouldn't trade that for anything. But being a little like a mile and a half outside of town now, just a little community. And we don't have that sense of community. So, like, to be able to participate in an organization like the Chamber, and interact with guys like yourself and guys and gals from all over the area that either have businesses in the area or working in businesses in the area is super cool. It gives like some kind of sense of community back. I think maybe we've lost, like, as a society in some regards too, but yeah, man, being able to go around, see new places in the community is also like has been a nice little value add that I didn't really think of, like, going into it, that not only like interacting with the community, but that would mean seeing new places and getting to again meet really cool people and build relationships within the community, whether that supports our business or not. I don't really care. That's what it's been about, though, is just that sense of community. So
awesome. Kevin, well, let's wrap it up here. I'll give you the floor to kind of shout out Scapes website, and then also any other thing you kind of want to shout out on, like, social media and all that.
Yeah, well, social, we might have to launch some new stuff, so we'll hold on that. But the website is tried and true. That's been around for a little bit now. So Scapes Designs, so it's plural, SCAPESDESIGNS.com. You can find us on there. There's a quick little like start your design process, which is really just a contact capture form. If anybody's interested, fill that out. It does come right to me. I'm the guy that would be reaching out to you. I always throw out, people can always reach out directly on my cell phone. I don't mind throwing it out anymore because now it's a dedicated business cell phone line. So if people are going to try and spam me, you can try and spam me all you want. But my cell phone, 484-241-6402. Pretty good about answering that. If I'm not answering anytime between 7 a.m. and 9 p.m., I'm probably in a meeting. And I'm pretty good about returning phone calls, texts, emails, whatever, right away. So
cool, Kevin. I appreciate your time, man, and I look forward to getting this up there, getting this out there. And thanks for jumping on with me.
Yeah, this was awesome, Eric. Thanks for having us, man. Really appreciate it.